Okay, let's dive in. We're tackling something pretty unexpected that's popped up in the federal criminal trial of Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah, this trial is obviously huge already, but there's this thread from years back. Claims that were, well, mostly dismissed at the time. Kind of wild stuff.
Totally dismissed. And all revolves around this one guy, Jonathan Oddi.
Right. And to really get a handle on this, we've been digging through, testimony excerpts from the actual trial, some older interviews with Audie and others, plus recent reporting that sort of connects these dots.
So what we want to do in this deep dive is really unpack it. Who is Jonathan Oddi? What were those old claims, the ones everyone ignored? How are they suddenly, weaving into this massive trial now?
And what does it all mean, if anything? It's really about seeing how these seemingly separate pieces might actually be linking up.
It's a fascinating turn, yeah. So let's start with the man himself, Jonathan Oddi, back when this first surfaced.
Okay, yeah. Let's rewind to, what, around 2018?
Right. And based on what we've seen, Jonathan Oddi back then was described as a former stripper, an adult performer.
And the context for his name first hitting the radar was intense. May 2018, he gets arrested after this really chaotic scene at the Trump National Doral Miami Hotel.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
Shooting inside the hotel. He draped a flag over something, ended in a shootout with police.
Exactly. Serious stuff. And he's still caught up in that, facing like 10 counts in Florida state court, attempted murder, assault, burglary, the works. Reports say his case hasn't really moved, and he's still jailed from that incident.
Okay, but here's the crucial part for this story. During a police interview, right after that hotel arrest, completely unprompted, apparently.
He just comes out with it, claims he was Sean Combs' sex slave.
That exact phrase. And back then, in that interview, he apparently went into some detail. Said he had sex with both Cassie and Sean.
Uh-huh. And that Sean would, direct things. He mentioned something like 15 encounters.
He also apparently said he heard a lot of business talk while he was around. Describe Sean as someone who talks a lot, on the phone, watching TV.
And he specifically claimed he was paid to have sex with Cassie in front of Combs.
Okay, but then, this is where it got messy, right? And why people basically wrote him off.
Yeah, exactly. Because in that same interview, Audie apparently made other claims that were, well, they sounded pretty out there.
Like what?
He talked about some group called the Boule, claimed it was tied to the Illuminati, but for black people. Just bizarre stuff.
Wow, okay.
And claims about moving drugs, MDMA, cocaine, even liquid cocaine on private jets. Said he saw liquid cocaine.
And there was more, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Something about him cracking himself, having sex with Diddy and Cassie. And that Combs drinks a lot.
Right. And it was all that stuff, those seemingly rambling, outlandish claims that led people at the time to just dismiss everything he said.
The sources basically say he was seen as making the ramblings of a crazy person.
Pretty much. So years ago, long before this current trial, anything he said specifically about Combs just didn't stick, didn't get any real traction or attention.
It just faded into the background noise of his own separate legal drama from the Dorland Hotel incident.
Exactly, until now.
Right. Fast forward to today, 2025. The whole situation is dramatically different. Sean Combs is on trial, federal charges, really serious ones. Sex trafficking, racketeering, prostitution.
Yeah, the core accusation is that he allegedly ran this criminal enterprise, using his businesses to abuse women, forcing them into sexual performances, these so-called freak-offs, sometimes with sex workers, drugs involved, voyeurism alleged.
And central to the prosecution's case, identified as victim one in the sources, is Cassie Ventura, Combs' ex-girlfriend. They were together 11 years.
Her testimony is obviously critical. She's alleging serious physical abuse, being beaten, dragged, kicked. And there's supporting evidence cited, like that 2016 hotel security footage everyone saw, plus photos of injuries.
And the prosecution's argument is that Combs used threats, violence, manipulation, basically coercion, to force Cassie into commercial sex acts, including, potentially, with male performers or escorts without her real consent.
So that's the heavy backdrop of this trial. And then suddenly, Jonathan Oddi's name comes up, right there in Cassie's testimony.
Yeah, it's like those dismissed claims from 2018 are suddenly potentially relevant in a federal courtroom. It's quite a shift.
It really is. Let's look at how the sources say his name actually surfaced in the trial transcript during the prosecution's direct examination.
Okay.
They show Cassie an government exhibit 2A624, ask if she knows the person. She identifies him as Jonathan.
And she confirms she knew him.
Yeah. Says, we saw him several times. Prosecution asks who we is. She says, Sean and I. Mostly in Miami, she adds.
Okay, so the prosecution puts his name out there. But then the defense.
Yeah.
They really zeroed in on him during cross-examination.
Oh, yeah. They bring up Mr. Jonathan Oddi, specifically call him an escort she met a few times. Cassie agrees.
And then the defense lawyer asks her, this is a key moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Asks if she understood at some point that Oddi had taken a secret video of her and Combs during a freak-off.
And her answer, under oath.
I thought he did, yeah.
Wow. So the defense then asks if she spent months trying to make this potential video go away.
And this is where her answer is crucial.
Yeah.
I did not. Mr. Combs did, yeah.
Combs did. That's huge.
Huge. So the defense pushes, asks if she knew Combs spent a great deal of time and money, or a significant amount of money, to make it disappear.
What did she say to that?
She said she didn't really know the details or if it was a significant amount, just that he handled it.
Okay. And did the defense ask about her relationship with Oddi after she suspected this recording?
They did. Asked if learning about it ended her relationship with him. She says, I believe so. Confirmed she wouldn't have had a freak-off with him again. No.
Did they ask about any direct contact, like a conversation?
Yeah. They asked about a recorded or transcribed conversation she might have had with Oddi. She didn't recall it specifically, but said it sounded familiar. She definitely confirmed she was concerned about the whole situation with him.
Concerned how? Like, did she think he was dangerous?
They asked if he seemed volatile. Her response was interesting. I don't know about volatile. I just didn't trust it.
Okay. And did they ask if he was actively threatening to release a video?
Yes. And she said, I don't know that he actually did that. I don't remember. She clarified she didn't remember him threatening to release it, just that she suspected he recorded.
How did she know? Or suspect?
She explained she actually saw his phone up in the room while they were there, and she told Sean about it right after.
So she was worried he was recording right then and there.
Exactly. At the time.
And when she told Combs her suspicion, what did he say or do, according to her testimony?
The defense asked if Combs did all that he could to get rid of Mr. Oddi. Her memory was basically him saying, I'll take care of it. That's the most I remember.
I'll take care of it.
And the defense also got her to agree that, as far as she knew, Combs was also concerned about recordings of himself getting out.
Which makes sense for a celebrity, right?
Yeah, she agreed it would be embarrassing for him, just like it would be for her if a video like that surfaced.
Okay, so stepping back from the transcript detail, what's the likely play here for the defense? Why hammer on this Oddi situation?
Well, it seems pretty clear, doesn't it? They seem to be trying to paint Combs as protective of Cassie in this instance. Like, see? He was concerned for her. He wouldn't use tapes against her. He spent his own time and money to make a potentially damaging tape involving her disappear.
Right, and by emphasizing her reactions, stopping contact with Oddi, letting Sean handle it, they might be trying to imply, look, she could take action or end things when she wanted to, maybe to chip away at the idea that she was completely trapped and powerless if Combs was the one holding something over her.
It definitely complicates the narrative around recordings and control, suggesting maybe the dynamic wasn't always one-way coercion, at least in this specific instance with Oddi.
Yeah, it adds layers. And speaking of layers and recordings, there was another situation involving a potential tape that came up in testimony, right? A different one.
Yes, completely separate. Cassie was questioned about an audio recording where she's allegedly heard. Well, really going off on a DJ. Sources mentioned the name Shugen, or Sugen, apparently over another potential freak-off tape.
Going off how? What did she allegedly say?
The quotes mentioned in the sources are pretty intense. Things like, if you have it, pull it up, or I will kill you and he will kill you again. That he, seemingly meaning Combs.
Wow.
And another alleged line, if you don't show me, I will cut you up.
Okay, that's aggressive. How did Cassie explain that behavior in her testimony?
She said she was just sick about it at the time, felt immense pressure from Sean, meaning Combs. She described herself as going in on Shugen, called the situation weird.
Pressure from Combs how? Did she elaborate?
Yeah, she said he was sending me messages, that he texted me quite a bit and called me quite a bit about it. She testified she felt directed by him to confront the DJ like that.
Okay, so see the contrast there. With this tape involving the DJ, she describes feeling directed by Combs, acting aggressively under his pressure.
Exactly. Versus the situation with Oddi's potential tape, where her testimony was that Combs just said, I'll take care of it, and she cut off contact with Oddi.
It presents two very different dynamics around potential recordings, and Combs's alleged involvement or direction makes the whole picture much more complex for the jury, you'd imagine.
No doubt. Okay, so let's circle back to Jonathan Oddi himself,
Mhm.
because he hasn't just been a name in court transcripts. He's actually spoken out recently, hasn't he, to News Nation?
He has, giving his side now that all this has resurfaced.
What's his take now?
Well, he told News Nation he actually felt bad for Cassie back when this was all happening. Thought she was decent, suspected she was in a tough spot but wasn't totally sure. Says now he feels like he understands her situation better.
And seeing that hotel video, the alleged beating?
He said that confirmed his own understanding of Combs's personality. He told News Nation something like, everything that happened to him is true and correct and in line with his personality, basically validating his own experiences in his mind.
Did he give News Nation more detail about the sexual encounters he alleged, the ones he mentioned back in 2018?
He did. Claimed he had to wear costumes sometimes, stripped down, said he was paid for extra stuff. He specified $800 per session.
How many sessions did he claim?
15 total, he said, sometimes more than one a day. All while, he alleges, Combs watched and pleasured himself.
He also mentioned drug use during these times.
Yeah, and said he was worried someone might overdose.
Okay, and remember the court testimony about a potential recording. What's Audie's story about that now? Did he record or not?
He claims he did record. He told News Nation he decided to do it after she passed out during one session.
Why? What was his reason?
He said it was in case anything bad happened, like if she died or anybody died. He claims he wanted proof he wasn't responsible, said he filmed the entire session and even had it transcribed.
Interesting. So he admits recording, but says it was for his own protection in case of, like, an accidental death?
That's his claim now. He also told News Nation that they, presumably, Combs and Cassie, had been threatening him, and he alleged that Combs would tell Cassie what to say to him.
So why tell them he had evidence? What was his stated reason for that?
He claims they stopped hiring him, he felt they were paranoid about him, and he wanted to guarantee my safety. So he says he texted them, basically saying, if anything happens to me, I have evidence of being with you.
Okay, now let's connect back to something else Audie claimed way back in that 2018 interview after his arrest. Money. He mentioned a settlement, right?
He did. He threw out figures like $4.125 million or $5 million that he claimed he settled for with Diddy. Said the settlement put him in a box, stopped him from talking because he'd get sued.
And now recently there's been reporting about a possible NDA.
Exactly. Sources like the Daily Mail, New York Post, they've reported on an alleged non-disclosure agreement from 2014 for $5 million, signed with Combs.
Is there proof?
They mention a picture that surfaced, supposedly showing an NDA doc with a signature over Combs' name and companies, though reports also say the authenticity of that signature is, being questioned. It's not definitively verified.
And his ex-wife, Tanya Troutwine, she spoke about this too.
Yeah, she did an interview with Law and Crime. Her account is pretty significant. She said she didn't even know about any agreement until Oddi contacted her out of the blue just weeks before that Doral Hotel shooting.
What did he say?
She said he was just rambling about some deal for all this money. He gave her a lawyer's number, supposedly the lawyer holding the agreement.
Did she talk to the lawyer?
She tried. But she described the lawyer as evasive, wouldn't share details, seemed more aligned with whoever was paying for the contract, not Oddi. Said the lawyer even blocked her from getting involved as co-counsel for Oddi.
And she connected this alleged deal to his breakdown.
She explicitly stated her belief that Oddi's mental state, his breakdown, was a result of his relationship with P. Diddy, and she said it's evidenced by his contract. She even claimed Oddi gave her a copy of it, almost in fear of his life.
Wow. Okay, and there's a potential money trail angle too, right? Something about property purchases.
Yeah, the sources point out this potential inconsistency. Apparently in divorce filings around that time, Oddi claimed his income was only about $2,000 a month.
Okay.
But then, less than a month later, he allegedly bought 5 properties, totaling over $765,000, and potentially in cash deals.
Which doesn't quite line up with the $2,000 a month income.
Not at all, but that kind of sudden ability to make large purchases could potentially fit with someone suddenly receiving a large lump sum, like, say, from a multi-million-dollar settlement or NDA payment.
It's circumstantial, but it adds another piece to that puzzle around the money he claimed he received back in 2018.
Right. It doesn't prove the NDA existed or the source of the funds, but it's consistent with the possibility he suddenly came into a lot of money around that time.
So, okay, let's try to pull all these threads together. You have this guy, Jonathan Oddi. What does his story suddenly popping up in this trial really mean?
It's pretty remarkable when you lay it all out, isn't it? A man whose story was completely dismissed years ago, seen as crazy talk, is now being discussed by name by a key alleged victim in a federal trial.
Yeah. And the detailed claims he's made, both then and now, plus this potential evidence bubbling up about an NDA, the money, the ex-wife's account.
Taken together, it adds this really complex, maybe even conflicting layer onto the incredibly serious charges Combs is facing. It doesn't automatically validate everything Oddi ever said, especially the Wilder stuff.
No, definitely not. But it certainly makes his core claims about his interactions with Combs and Cassie seem, well, less dismissible than they were in 2018. They have a potential relevance now they simply didn't have before.
Absolutely. It's a stark example of how past events, things you thought were long buried or irrelevant, can suddenly resurface and gain significance in a new legal context, especially when other information or testimony seems to potentially corroborate parts of it.
And for you listening, this is why it's worth paying attention to these kinds of side stories. It shows how information that might seem totally disconnected, maybe even unbelievable on its own, can potentially fit into a much bigger picture.
It really highlights the challenge of sorting through truth, assessing credibility, connecting dots in these high-stakes cases where you have so many different stories, histories, and motives all colliding. It's rarely simple.
So just to recap the key threads we've pulled. Oddi's original kind of wild claims from 2018. His name suddenly appearing in Cassie's testimony about that potential recording and how Sean Combs allegedly handled it.
Then Oddi's own recent detailed accounts to News Nation explaining his side, and layered on top of that, the reports and accounts suggesting there might have been a multi-million-dollar NDA and settlement back in 2014.
It's quite a convergence, all coming together years later in this trial.
It really is.
So here's something to think about as we wrap this up, something that goes beyond just this specific case. How many other stories, maybe ones that were dismissed or seemed totally isolated at the time, might look different now? How many might gain new significance if viewed through the lens of broader patterns or allegations like the ones being explored in this Combs trial? It makes you wonder about information you might have previously just written off, doesn't it?